Welcome to Cornell Notes, Unit 9, Lesson 1. Today we're going to be talking about non-renewable and renewable energy resources. Please put today's date on your Cornell Note sheet along with your first and last name. Today's topic is non-renewable and renewable energy resources. And once you have your Cornell Note heading on the top of your paper, we will move forward. Okay, so what I would like for you to do first is take a look up here at the overhead. Take a look at the 4 memes that I chose for you. Oh, no, wait, there's 3. The 3 memes that I chose. Take a look at them. And figure out which one speaks to you the most. Think about why. Okay, so raise your hand if what Maya Angelou said speaks to you the most. Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. Do you like that one the most? Raise your hand. Okay, over here on the top right, it is time for sustainable energy policy, which puts consumers, the environment, human health, and peace first. Okay, raise your hand if that one speaks to you the most. Good. And then finally, Thomas Edison, in 1931, he said, "I'd put my money on the sun and solar energy. What a source of power. I hope we don't have to wait until oil and coal run out before we tackle that." Raise your hand if that one speaks to you the most. Very nice. Okay. Okay, so let's start off our note-taking with talking about those non-renewable resources. In this Cornell Note set, there's a lot of writing. I really want you to figure out what is important and what is not, and maybe even shorten what I've underlined for you. So it says a non-renewable resource. So the word non-renewable, notice that's in bold, that's going to go to the left. Your left-hand column. You could even say, what is a non-renewable resource? Well, it's a natural resource. You can put bullet points. You don't have to write the entire thing. It's a natural resource that cannot be remade or regrown at a scale comparable to its consumption. So examples of non-renewable resources are going to be our coal, our oil, our natural gas, and a lot of people don't really think about it, but also nuclear energy. Okay, and that's because nuclear energy uses uranium, and once all the uranium is gone, it's gone. Okay? Non-renewable resource. You can bullet point natural resource. You could bullet point and say cannot be remade or regrown at a scale comparable to its consumption, which means that it takes several million years for coal, oil, and natural gas to be made by the earth, but we're using it up in a couple of 100 years. That's why it says it cannot be remade or regrown at a scale comparable to its consumption. Can I move forward? Okay, let's talk about nuclear energy. Nuclear energy uses what's called nuclear fission, and it uses uranium, capital U on the periodic table of elements, to create energy. Nuclear energy is considered non-renewable because once the uranium is used, it's gone. At this time, 12 to 18% of the world's electricity is generated through nuclear energy. And in our next slide, we're going to talk about some advantages and disadvantages of nuclear energy. A very famous cartoon character worked at a nuclear power plant. Do you remember who that is? Do you know who that is? He loves donuts. No? Are you guys thinking Homer Simpson? Yeah, okay. Okay, so that is nuclear energy. And this right here is what is called a cooling tower. Okay, because those uranium rods, they get extremely hot, and they have to have a way to cool them down. So that's what you're seeing there is the steam, essentially, coming out of the cooling tower. Okay, let's talk about some advantages and disadvantages. So over here are your advantages. Okay, you do not have any sort of release of greenhouse gases. Okay, so greenhouse gases are thought to warm the earth. Nuclear energy, it is not going to warm the earth in any sort of way that's going to cause additional greenhouse gases to be trapped in the atmosphere. Also, it creates a lot of energy. It creates a lot of energy. When nuclear fission is performed on those uranium, I guess they're rods, a tremendous amount of energy is created for a relatively low cost. But here are your disadvantages. Okay, disadvantages to nuclear energy are pretty large. The issue is that nuclear power plants, they produce a tremendous amount of radioactive waste. It's extremely dangerous to the environment and to humans. And these nuclear power plants are at risk of what we call nuclear meltdown. Okay, so this is the issue. When nuclear fission occurs, to those uranium rods, like we said, a lot of energy is produced, but so is a lot of this toxic radioactive waste. And for a long time, they didn't know what to do with that waste. And so they would take them and they'd put them in these huge barrels and drop them at the bottom of the ocean. And then finally somebody was like, oh, that's probably not a very good idea. What are we going to do with the waste now? Does anybody know what they currently do with the waste? They know there's no way to recycle this waste. I mean, it is just toxic waste. Do you know what they do with it?
Do they launch it up in space?
They do not. That is way too costly. Currently, what they are doing is that they are burying it in undisclosed locations in the deserts. Okay, and think about why maybe they're not going to tell you where they're burying it. Okay, these also, you need to understand nuclear power plants are at a really, there's a high threat. I guess if terrorists really wanted to do something horrible, they could, do something horrible to the nuclear power plant, because that's going to be, that's going to cause a lot of problems because of this right here, nuclear meltdown. The Chernobyl nuclear power plant explosion in 1986 in Ukraine killed thousands and affected millions with cancer. Have you guys heard of Chernobyl? Okay, that area, even though that happened in 1986, that area is still radioactive. Okay, they are just now letting camera crews and photographers and things like that and scientists go in and kind of poke around. Okay, but they found frogs with several extra legs. basically the people who live around there, they are not able to reproduce, meaning they can't have kids. And then people who do have kids sometimes have kids with severe birth defects. People around that area, they are dying at a very early age of cancer. So it caused a lot of issues. Does anybody know that another nuclear power plant that had some issues because of an earthquake? Have you guys heard of Fukushima in Japan? Okay, you'd really have to dig and do your research because everything's been really quiet about that. We have heard, though, that it has affected food supply in the ocean. So starting tomorrow, you're going to have some hot topics like this, and you're going to get to choose which ones you would like to research. And I will say this, Fukushima is on there, and so is Chernobyl. Okay? Okay, let's move on. Coal, petroleum, and natural gas. They are considered non-renewable because they cannot be replenished in a short period of time. These are called fossil fuels. So let's do this. I want you to put the word fossil fuels on your, maybe on the left. Okay, fossil fuels on the left. And then put coal, oil, and natural gas. Coal, oil, and natural gas. Those are all three of our fossil fuels. So let's look at how coal is made. You don't have to write anything for this. Let's just look at it together, please. Okay, so 300 million years ago, you had dinosaurs. You have swamps. Okay, you've got these giant plants and creatures that died in these swamps. And then over millions and millions of years, the plants were buried under water and dirt. Think the rock cycle, right? It just keeps pushed further and further and further underground, right? But we're not talking about rocks here. We're talking about dead plants and animals. Okay, and so under a tremendous amount of heat and pressure, does that sound familiar? Those metamorphic rocks. Okay, so under a tremendous amount of heat and pressure, the dead plants and animals, they are turned into coal. Let's look at oil and gas. Okay, remember from Earth, the Operator's Manual, he said if woody plants turn to coal, right? Over here, you've got, let's look at what happens when you've got oceanic creatures and things like that. So 300 to 400 million years ago, tiny sea plants and animals died. They were buried on the ocean floor, and over time they were covered by layers of silt and sand. Okay, and very similar to the rock cycle. Okay, those over millions of years, the remains were buried deeper and deeper. The enormous heat and pressure then turned them into oil and gas. And today we drill down through the layers of sand, silt, and rock to reach the rock formations that contain those deposits of oil and gas. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. So what is the difference between coal, oil, and gas? If non-renewable resources are resources that cannot be remade at a scale comparable to its consumption, what are renewable resources? Well, let's look at the slides that are following this. Here we go. Renewable resources. Renewable resources are natural resources that can be replenished in a short period of time. Okay? As a nation, I personally would love to see us getting away from the use of our fossil fuels and looking to our future at using more and more of our renewable energy resources. So for the next few slides, you're going to learn about solar, wind, water, geothermal, and biomass. So renewable resources that can go to the left. They are natural resources that can be replenished in a short period of time. So if you just want to put natural resources that can be replenished, go for it. Okay, and then make sure that you write down solar, wind, water, geothermal, and biomass. Okay, and the first one that we are going to talk about is going to be solar. Can we move forward? Okay. So solar energy is energy from the sun. Let's talk about some advantages. Obviously, it's renewable. And it's pollution free. Some disadvantages. It has not been shown to be cost effective in large scale uses. So for example, you could run an entire town or a large city like Wichita or even Dallas-Fort Worth on a nuclear power plant. Okay, because that's how much energy that nuclear power plant produces. Solar panels or solar energy is not cost effective in large scale uses. Okay, for the amount of money that it costs to put up solar panels, it's not going to produce enough energy to run the entire city of Dallas-Fort Worth or to run the entire city of Wichita. Okay, that's why you might see them on like a stop sign. Or where else have you seen them? Okay, a home might have them. Okay, so more smaller scale. Okay, very individualized. There are limited heating hours. Obviously, there are only 24 hours in the day. And only half of that is sunshine. Only half of that is sunshine. And then, of course, you know what? I don't know about you guys, but I didn't see any sun all week last week. Okay, so you've got to think of that as being a disadvantage. Also, there's this need to be able to store the energy from the sun so it can still be used at night or like last week when it was not sunny at all. Also at this time, they occupy large pieces of land. I don't know if any of you have ever seen solar panels on a home, but typically for that one home, the solar panel will take up the entire roof. Okay, so that's a lot of space for just, one house. Yep. Matt Damon in The Martian definitely used solar panels. Yes. Okay. Let's talk about geothermal. Let's break that word down. Geo means earth. Okay, and thermal means heat. Okay, so it's literally heat that is generated, energy that is generated from the Earth's heat. Geothermal, its advantages is that it's renewable in the long run, it's very cost effective, and it's a reliable, constant resource. Several homes here in Kansas actually have geothermal heating systems. Okay, I think Mr. Dawson was telling me that, is it at K-State? They have geothermal lines that run under the sidewalks that keep the sidewalks from freezing.
Same thing at the airport,
Okay, Mid-Continental Airport has that, or sorry, is it Eisenhower now?
Yeah, Eisenhower.
Okay.
It's only on runway 1, though.
Okay. So geothermal systems can be used on airport runways. Schools can be powered by geothermal energy. And essentially what happens is they drill down where the earth is much warmer. They pump water down there, and then steam will rise, and it will spin a turbine, and that generates the electricity. So its disadvantages is that you can only use it locally. So you can use it for, if you have a geothermal heating system, you can use it for your house, or the airport could use it for that runway. So local uses only. Also, because you are drilling down into the earth, sometimes you can get some bad smelling gases, maybe like sulfur or something like that. Also, sometimes those gases can be corrosive or harmful. Does anybody have any questions about geothermal? Okay, hang in there with me, guys. We've got 3 more slides. Oh, you're doing great. Okay, let's talk about wind energy. Obviously, wind energy is generated from the wind. Its advantages is that it's renewable. It's pollution-free. It does not create any sort of pollution. And it's low cost. So, like we learned about in the ETOM video, a lot of times these companies, they will lease land from farmers. So you need really like wide open spaces, preferably flat land. Kansas is a great area for wind turbines because of the wind. I know that was one of the first things I noticed about Wichita when I moved here, is I was like, dang, it is windy here. Okay. So Kansas is a great place for these wind turbines. They lease the land, they build the turbine, and just think about it. You don't have to pay somebody to go and run that wind turbine every day. Nobody has to show up from 8 to 5 to make sure that wind turbine is spinning. You know, you might not have to hire a technician, to come out and fix things that need to be fixed. But pretty much once they're built, they just do their thing. Some disadvantages is that limited areas are suitable. It would not be appropriate for USD 259 to put a wind turbine on the roof of Allison. You don't really want them in heavily populated areas. You want them kind of, out in the middle of a field where they can do their things. The winds, they must be greater than 21 kilometers per hour in order for them to spin. And then you would definitely need backup provisions if there wasn't any wind for a while. Okay, can I move forward? Okay, biomass. Bio means living things, okay? And biomass is literally when you get energy from burning organic or living matter. Some advantages to biomass is that it is renewable and it reduces the dependency on fossil fuels. Okay, some advantages is that it's renewable and it reduces the dependency on fossil fuels. Our disadvantages is that it's expensive to produce and there are limited sources. Okay, the plants are not grown year-round. Okay, so like, say for example, a farmer, he's harvested his corn. Okay, the unused portion of corn stalks and things like that could be burned for fuel. But it's not like you want to go out into a forest and just start chopping everything down, for fuel. That would not be good. Which is what they do have to do in some remote areas of Africa. Also, as you can imagine, it creates a lot of pollution. Okay, can we move forward? Hydroelectric power. Hydro means water, and then electric, well, power. So it's power generated through water. Raise your hand if you've ever been to Las Vegas. Raise your hand if you've ever seen pictures of Las Vegas. Okay, the first thing that probably comes to mind when you think of Las Vegas is all of those lights. Okay, and there's a tremendous amount of energy that is needed in order to power all of those lights. And that actually comes from the Hoover Dam in Nevada. Okay, so hydroelectricity is used to power Las Vegas. Raise your hand if you've ever seen a dam like this, like in a movie, or maybe pictures. Okay, Yeah. If you, what was that movie with the capital? Well, anyways. So let's talk about some advantages. Okay, some advantages to hydroelectric dams is that they are renewable, it is pollution-free, and it's a reliable, continuous resource. So essentially what has happened is this is man-made, this is built by people, okay, and all that water, that structure right there, this is a dam, okay, and so it basically holds all of this water. It's like kind of like a storage tank, and when they need electricity, what they will do is they will release the water, okay, and that water will spin turbines, and it will create electricity. Let's talk about some disadvantages. It's really hard to find appropriate sites for a dam, like the Hoover Dam. Like, this is this massive structure, guys. Okay, so there are limited sites available. It would not be appropriate for us to have a dam here in Wichita. Okay, even though we have a river, it's this too large scale. There's also a large scale accident risk. Okay, so this is another thing that we have to protect, and we have to make sure that terrorists don't get access to. Okay, because if you blow up this dam, what's going to happen?
It's gonna flood.
It's going to create a flood. Okay. Well, think about it. Large-scale environmental damage, Trenton. Large-scale environmental damage. Okay, so anything that is down here or in the water's path will be flooded. Okay. Also, it costs a lot of money to build a dam. That's also a disadvantage. It costs a lot of money to build the dam. Okay, can I move forward? Okay. Okay. What are the differences between non-renewable and renewable energy resources? I want you to think about it. And what I want you to do right now is write your Cornell Notes summary. Thank you for watching Cornell Notes with me.